everyone, this is Rabbit Ball Animation Bliss, and welcome to another anime discussion series. So today's anime discussion we talk about today is my thoughts on the third season for Sonic Prime. So the third season of Sonic Prime is all about the character of Nine, who's like an alternate universe version of Tails, and it turns out that Nine becomes the antagonist of the season as he steals the Shatter Crystals and he tries to use them to make his own universe or to make his own world. And so Sonic, Shadow, and the other multiverse versions of the other characters all come together to try to stop Nine from destroying the universe. So what are my thoughts about Sonic Prime Season 3? Well, it's okay, I guess. Well, I didn't really hate the season completely. Like, I thought there were some good moments this season, but there were some moments that did disappoint me this season. But let's talk about what I did like about this season. So the first thing that I liked about this season were the characterizations of Shadow and Nine. As I mentioned before, Nine is pretty much the evil version of Tails, or he's the version of Tails who was bullied all of his life and had never met Sonic. So the fact that they decided to take Nine's character into a villainous route this season was really interesting to me, and I really like how this season was able to handle Nine's descent into villainy this season, because I've always wanted to see what would happen if Nine actually turns out to be the villain, or at least show the audience about what would happen if Tails himself becomes the antagonist for the Sonic the Hedgehog franchise. And we get to see that he's a little more competent than the Eggman Council, or he's a bit more competent than Eggman himself. So that's a very scary thought, and I think that the season did a really good job of showing us just how scary Nine can be as he becomes the villain this season. So I love the fact that this season actually made Nine into the main antagonist, and we get to see just how horrifying he could be when he becomes the antagonist of the Sonic the Hedgehog franchise. And then another character that I really liked was Shadow the Hedgehog himself. As I mentioned before, I love the fact that Shadow the Hedgehog is being written very well in this series. Like, he's not being written as this character who doesn't like anybody and is just out to fight people. He's actually being written as a character who can be very stern with Sonic, but at the same time he wants to save the world and he tries to work with Sonic the best way he can. And there's also moments where he does really care about Sonic. So I like seeing this more softer side to Shadow the Hedgehog and seeing that he's very level-headed throughout the whole thing. And this is the interpretation of Shadow the Hedgehog that I've always liked to see. I love it when they make Shadow the Hedgehog to a more level-headed character who can be grumpy at times, but at the same time he does care about his friends. And I want to see more of this characterization of Shadow the Hedgehog in the video games, instead of making him a one-note character who's just all about fighting people and doesn't really care about anybody. That's not the characterization of Shadow the Hedgehog that I like. So I love the fact that Sonic Prime actually characterized Shadow in such a great way in the series, and I like to see more of that. Another thing that I liked about the show were the action sequences. As usual, the action sequences are done very well in the show. I think that everything's very well animated, and there's a lot of action sequences throughout this season, and they're all very well animated. That I was actually sitting on the edge of my seat whenever the fight sequences would come up. So yeah, I love how the action sequences were done this season. Now, here are a few issues that I have with this season. So the first major issue that I have with this season was that there were too many fight scenes. This was like the biggest complaint that a lot of viewers have with this season of Sonic Prime, and I actually agree with them. Like, there was so many fight scenes throughout this season that there wasn't enough time to really develop the characters. Like, I felt like the characters were just thrown into the situation this season, and there was never really development to any of the characters. And because of that, I found myself not really caring about most of the characters this season, because they weren't really developed that well. And the fact that this season focuses mostly on fighting Nine, and it spends like the entire season just fighting Nine and doing all of these battle sequences back and forth, back and forth, back and forth with no breaks in between, has me really upset that none of the characters were given any development. And I just couldn't really care about the character situation this season because there was nothing but fight scenes throughout the season and not enough development for the characters themselves. And then another issue that I have with this season, and this kind of ties into the first issue, is that we still don't get a lot of development from the original versions of Sonic's friends. Like, it seems like with the show as a whole, whenever we see the original versions of Sonic's friends, they don't really get a lot of development. Like, they're just kind of there, and they're just kind of used as an excuse for Sonic to go on this journey through the multiverse and tried to get his friends back, but they were not really given a lot of characterization. And I was really hoping that the third season was going to develop these characters a little better, but unfortunately the original versions of Sonic's friends were still underdeveloped throughout this show, and it has me really upset because I want to see more development from Sonic's friends, especially in the original timeline. And I felt like this show kind of fumbled that whenever it got to the third season. Like, it didn't really bother to go and try to find Sonic's original friends and develop them a little more, besides making them be the goal for Sonic to go through the multiverse and try to save them. Like, the only character from Sonic's original timeline that gets any kind of development at all was Shadow the Hedgehog himself. So yeah, I was very disappointed that we still didn't get any kind of development from the original versions of Sonic's friends, and I was hoping that the show was going to do that at some point, but unfortunately it didn't do that this season. Before I give out my overall thoughts on this season of Sonic Prime, here are a few words from the channel. All aboard the Animated Social Media Express. Want to send some tweets my way? Then follow me on Twitter. Want to join our special animation community? Then join our Discord group, Animation Bliss. Want to see more updates on our YouTube videos? Then check out our Facebook group, Animation Bliss. Want to download on everything going on with this channel? Then check all of the above. And now, back to the video. So overall, I felt like the third season of Sonic Prime was the weakest season compared to the first two seasons. Like, while there was a couple good moments throughout the season, like the characterizations of Nine and Shadow and the action sequences, I felt like the season kind of fumbled in terms of really developing the characters, especially the original timeline versions of Sonic's friends, and it just felt like that this whole season was just fight scene after fight scene, and it didn't spend enough time on developing the characters themselves and making the audience really care about these characters in general. So yeah, I felt like the third season of Sonic Prime was very weak, but of course there were some good moments throughout the season that I did like. But yeah, I would probably just stick with the first two seasons of Sonic Prime. So those are my thoughts on the third season of Sonic Prime, and tell me in the comments down below, did you guys see the third season of Sonic Prime? And if you have, did you like the season? Did you hate the season? And because this is apparently the final season for Sonic Prime, I will eventually do a review on the entire series of Sonic Prime down the line, so be on the lookout for that. Well, that's it for this video. This is Rabbit Ball Animation Bliss, and I'll see you guys later. Hey animation fans, like this video? If you want to see more animated content from this channel, then please hit that big old animated subscribe button so that you can get more awesome content from this channel.